Frank's Red Hot is the perfect blend of flavor and heat, so you can use an entire bottle to make recipes like buffalo chicken dip or buffalo nachos, or even things that don't start with buffalo. Frank's Red Hot, I put that on everything.
Hey, Craig.
That comeback was bananas. B-A-N-A-N-A-S. That comeback was bananas. B-A-N-A-N-A-S.
Yes, it was.
And this is, let me see, this podcast versus everyone. I'm Craig Powers. With me is Jeff Newser.
Hello.
And we're going to do a podcast first, and we're going to talk about the women's basketball team right off the bat.
Yeah. Like, we're just going to dive right in because we have
so much stuff
on.
to talk about. But when one of our programs upsets the top 10 team, gets a top 25 ranking, has an epic comeback win, we'll start off with them because they're pretty much the best team we got going right now.
Yeah.
And that's Cami Etheridge's basketball team, who was picked, as we've said last time, 12th in the conference, but they are certainly looking well beyond that. What a game on was that Sunday? Yeah. Down 16 with a little over 12 minutes left, to one of the top 10 team in the country with one of the best players in the country.
Yeah.
And they came back and they did it.
Yeah.
Won in overtime.
Game was fantastic, man. They so I didn't get a chance to watch it live, and one of the real sometimes so sometimes at the website people are like, why don't you write about this more? Why don't you write about that more? And it's usually a women's sport that we don't cover enough. But sometimes it's like baseball, right? People are like, why don't you write about baseball more? Why don't you, whatever? And it's like, you know what? I'm just a man who has a family, and there's only so much time in my life for writing about sports and following teams and everything. I mean, look, back when we started this website, whatever it was now, like 13 years ago, we actually did a lot with baseball because baseball was really good back then. You and I in particular did a ton.
Yep.
And, but we're older now. We have kids, and it's like, well, I had a kid at the time, but now I have 3. And so it's like, we're recording this real late. It's almost 10 o'clock on Tuesday night because
that's when we have time
my children,
to do it.
What's that?
Because that's when we have time to do it.
I know. It's when we have time to do it. We do it late, and it's even later tonight than normal because I had to take my children to Target because they wanted to spend their Christmas gift cards, and it took forever. He's like, I don't know what Lego set I want. So anyway, the point is that I wish we could cover everything the way that we'd want to cover it. If anybody's listening, by the way, and you're like, I would love to cover women's basketball, let me know. But
especially if you're a woman.
Yeah, like we are always looking to add to our staff in diverse ways. But yeah, it's like, so I didn't get a chance to watch the game live. I had other things that I had to do because I spent all day Saturday watching men's basketball and the Seahawks and, whatever else. And so, I was kind of following from afar on Slack, and you guys were kind of going nuts, like, oh my God, they did it. And I was like, oh, wow. Because when I looked, they were down by quite a bit. And so then later that night, Sunday night, they showed the replay on Pac-12 Networks, which is its own little thing that I'll spare you my complaints about that. But it was really, really cool to watch, man. They just, they play hard, they defend, and they've got a couple playmakers. It's Charlize Ledger-Walker gets all the attention, and she is awesome. You wrote a great story about her, what makes her so good. But her sister's great too. Like that was, her sister's. I don't know if she's a grad transfer or just a straight
transfer. She's a grad transfer.
Grad transfer, okay. Came from Northern Arizona?
Northern Colorado.
Northern Colorado. Damn it, I knew it was one of those two. Okay, so Northern Colorado, basically playing at, mid-major level. Transfers up, comes with her sister, and they're both great. And
I think she must have dominated the Big Sky, man.
She must have.
Big and strong guard.
Yeah, and when we say she must have, it's because, data is harder to come by. Statistics are harder to come by for the women's game. So anyway, super fun to watch them. They'll remind you a lot of the men's team, to be honest. They don't quite have the same interior presence. They're much more guard dominant, but at the same time, just the same kind of grit, the same kind of fight. And the teams are kind of built in similar ways, right? I mean, it's international players. Charlize Ledger-Walker and her sister they're from New Zealand. So
obviously
they
have about as many countries as the men's team does. So
Yeah, it might even be more, man. I think they only have about 2 or 3 players from the States. I think everybody else is international.
They have an assistant coach. He actually just followed me on Twitter. Who is from Australia.
Okay.
Jason Chaney.
Yep, that makes sense.
So he's from Australia.
Yep.
From Brisbane.
Yeah.
I've been there. I would guess that's where, some of our New Zealand and
we do have at least one Australian, right?
Ulamatuga is Australian, yeah. And so
there might be another one too.
Yeah. Obviously, we are not as up on the. I'm sure by the end of the season we'll have caught up with all the roster, and because I'm fully on board with this team. Like they are so fun to watch.
Yeah.
To have playmakers like you said, like Crystal and Charlize, just is so awesome, and just to have a closer like Charlize, like they drew up a great play for her to get the time bucket. Bless the basketball karma gods for Arizona to miss some fucking free throws. And,
yeah.
And because
we earned that shit. We needed that.
I'll say by the end of the season, the women's getting the win over Arizona is going to be a lot bigger than the men getting the win over Arizona, because the women look like they're headed to the NCAA tournament at this point. And that win is going to be huge for them. And getting there and getting better seeding, and because they've only been once in 1991, they were an 11 seed and they lost in the first round. So it'd be great, if they, it's just crazy. They added these 2 Ledger Walker sisters, and they have they still have the younger Molina. She's quick. She gets in line. Like Bella
Murakatete?
She had a huge. So
I probably got that wrong, by the way.
Yeah. So we just call her Bella.
I'm trying to imitate Greg Heister, which is always dangerous too.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. As we know from Abogadi. But so Bella was huge in the comeback.
Yeah.
She was in foul trouble, but once they got down 16, she had a personal 7-0 run to get them within 9 before the break. They do quarters, and she's big. She's 6'3".
Yep.
She's got good size. They have another 6'3" center, Emma Nakurvis. She's also from Australia.
Yep.
So they got two kids from Australia. They got 2 kids from New Zealand. They got Turkey. Estonia.
There are, by the way, the count is 4 players from the U.S. The rest, now Bella, she went to high school in Idaho, but she's from Rwanda originally. So I don't know which you want to throw that into, whether that counts as a United States recruit or an international recruit. But sort of the point is, right? Like we talked about this over and over and over again with the men's basketball team. Like WSU, you have to expand the talent pool. You have to get players from other places. You can't just go head to head with everybody else and expect to come out on top. And
I don't know if Theo has a bandwidth or anyone has a bandwidth. Maybe it might be us. Someone's got to track down this story about how the Ledger Walkers ended up in Pullman, and how Crystal came over, and because this is game changing. I mean, like program changing additions that they made. Like, back to the game. Obviously, it was really they got that free throw karma. Arizona misses 2 big free throws, and then it seems like I wasn't aware in women's game. It's more like the NBA game. You get to advance the ball to half court when you call timeout. Because to be honest, I was watching it as I was walking with my family around the neighborhood, and I was watching it on my phone. So I tried to watch the replay because I had it on DVR, and maybe my DVR is sexist, because usually with the men's basketball games, it extends when it's in overtime. It automatically extends. Did not extend. Cut off right at the 2 hours.
Jerks.
So I got a sexist DVR, so I'm gonna have to figure out something on that. But yeah, it's because they seem to have a proclivity to play close games, so it might happen again. But yeah, they drew up a great play for her. They ran like a dummy cutter, and then they got a double screen for Charlize. It gave her just enough space, and she came under. Great reverse layup to tie the game. She's just so skilled. Like she's just so savvy for a freshman. And then, it was really her sister Crystal at the start of the overtime that kind of took over. She was setting up her teammates. Which one of the guards? 30. What do I want to say? Who was it? One of the guards that hit the three.
I do not remember.
I think it was Joanna Teeter. I can look. I think she's the one that hit
stats over here in the play-by-play.
It was either Sarver or Teeter. They hit a huge three, put the Cougs up 5. And then, of course,
it
Arizona
was Sarver, by the way.
Sarver.
Yes.
So Sarver hits a big 3, puts Cougs up 5. Then they kind of hold off Arizona. Arizona ties it up, and then it's pretty cool. They literally just did a clear out, give it to Charlize, and she broke her defender down, got in the lane. Freaking crazy tough scoop shot. Got around Arizona's big, who's like 6'5", and laid it in. It was pretty awesome moment. We had, it's toddler time. You just got to get her to burn energy. So we're like out on the porch, having her run around the yard after the walk, and I'm just like watching on my phone. Yeah, just like getting into it, and so it's pretty funny. Like every time I react, I feel the need to tell Amanda why I reacted, and I don't think she cared. But yeah, I got pretty hyped, and yeah, that was fun, man. That was a heck of a win, and obviously that puts them in a good spot in the conference. They're in second, just one loss overall, with some good wins. Right now, I in terms of using the men's terms, I think they use it the same way in women's. In the net, I believe the UW and Colorado wins should both be Q1 or Quadrant 1 wins, and now the Arizona wins a Quadrant 1 win. I think Oregon State hasn't started very well, but they could very well win quite a few games and move up in the net rankings because they were expected to be pretty good. So they've already got some good wins under their belt, and they got a lot more conference games to go. So they have back-to-back games from Stanford in a couple weeks. They're at it's interesting.
That will not be fun, probably.
Yeah, probably not. but if it is, that'd be amazing because WSU has never beaten Stanford.
Well, that's like the rub with like all of this stuff. Like the Pac-12 is just like it is absurdly good.
Yeah, they're going down to USC and UCLA. UCLA is another top 10 team. USC is another good team. But USC both could be Quadrant 1 opportunities. It's kind of interesting that the men and the women are both playing in LA the same weekend.
Wonder if they'll take the same plane and same bus and like party. Probably not. Probably don't want those teams mixing.
Probably no partying.
Just kidding. Not really partying. Just like hanging out, playing Uno. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe.
Like whatever. But yeah, I mean, it's the conference is just insanely tough, and it has been for decades, really. Like the Pac-12, for as much as we bag on the Pac-12 for crappy football or mediocre men's basketball or whatever. It's always one of the top conferences for women's sports. Like it's been that way for decades, really. And it's not a huge shock, right? I mean, you would expect that the West Coast would maybe be a little more progressive in terms of, opportunities for female athletes over the years. Maybe not today, but, certainly 2 to 3 decades ago. So, it's one of the reasons why the women's basketball team has never been ranked before this year. Like the conference they play in is just
don't get enough wins.
Yeah, insanely hard and very, very difficult, obviously, always to get talent up to Pullman, and even harder when you've got these, massive heavyweight programs, on the West Coast, and really led by Stanford over the years, and so to see them kind of break through this year is again, just it's super cool. It's really, really cool, and we've said this before, but we're kind of, we seem to be going through a little bit of a renaissance in WSU athletics. I mean, when I was in school, the volleyball team was good, really, really good. Sarah Silvernail was sort of maybe the best volleyball player in program history. She was, leading the team when I showed up. The men's basketball team was pretty good. The football team went to a Rose Bowl. The baseball team was horrific. The soccer team, I have no idea if the soccer team is any good, but I assume they were bad. Because I don't recall anything about that. And the women's basketball team was like beyond horrendous. Like they were actually reasonably close to coming up. Like their one tournament appearance back in 91 or something like that. Harold Rhodes was still the coach when I showed up at school, so the guy who'd taken him to the tournament was still the coach, and but they were bad. They were bad. So anyway, it's really cool. Like, the basketball team, men's basketball team's on the upswing. The women's basketball team is ranked. The soccer program is incredible. The football
still
team
coming off a college cup because they haven't had a season.
Because they haven't played yet. The football team, the weird ass 4-game whatever we did this fall notwithstanding, has been above average to very good for half a decade now. I mean, it's and baseball is
tennis went to
tennis has been great.
Tournament.
Baseball's pulling in top 25 recruiting
I think
classes.
You said volleyball already, right?
Volleyball's been great. Like obviously, under Jen Greeny has been awesome. Like to have multiple top 25 programs in a given year, and to have multiple like NCAA tournament programs in a given year, is really. I mean, look, I'm not. My institutional knowledge does not go back that far, but since I've been a Coug, which is 1995, so that's a long time ago now. It's 25 years. There's never been anything like this with all the different programs, and I think that's a real testament to both the commitment to athletics from the school, that's part of it, and then I think the leadership of Pat Chun, who obviously hasn't been around for that long, but to sort of mobilize and get this stuff moving in the right direction. I mean, he hired Etheridge. He's the one that called, like pretty much right after he was hired, made the call to pull the plug on June Doherty, which at the time was like, whoa, because I think we all felt like June was maybe at some point on the cusp. Hired, Kemi Etheridge, and obviously turned out to be a good decision. So this is good times, man. Good times to be a Coug.
So, back to Crystal. So she wasn't. This is her best season. I was looking at that too. I didn't know where to fit that in, but she was also not a grad transfer. She sat out. Oh, that's right. She sat out last year.
But still, she did not exactly light the world on fire before this year.
So she's definitely having the best season. A lot because it's driven by her 3-point shooting and free throw shooting. It seems maybe she is shooting more than she did. She has more of an offensive role in terms of shooting at WSU. So she's doing really well, and her sister, obviously, we talked about her last week, a fourth, including a third in a row freshman of the week. There was a publication that gave Crystal Ledger-Walker the Pac-12 Women's Player of the Week. So there's accolades rolling in. They're ranked 25th. So in terms of where they are at and going to the tournament, they are currently 34th in the net, which is a great spot to be. If you end the season at 34th and you have a good solid record, and you're going to be in good shape. You're almost guaranteed
you feel
to
pretty
get
good
in.
about that.
They're in a really good spot right now. So they've had some high RPI and net rankings before because under June and then under even more so under Cami, they schedule really tough in the non-conference. So last year and the year before they had some really good RPIs, but they just they had a losing record, so they weren't going to. The year before. What year did they go to the NIT Final Four? Was 2018. So that would be a couple years ago. So they'd have high RPIs, just not great records. But this year they're kind of winning some of those games. They should have beat Oregon too, and Oregon's second in the net or third in that ranking. So so that would have been a huge win. Even just being close to them is probably helpful in the net as well. We talked about how they have the adjusted efficiency margin, which is similar to KenPom in that. So yeah, they're in a position. They've only been once in 1991, and they're in a position to make a run. They do have a tough weekend ahead, but I think USC is definitely a team they can beat. UCLA is going to be the tough one, but if they can split that, they're right. They're right on track. Staying on track.
Yep. Feel awful good about that for sure.
Which is awesome. It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun watching them. Most of their games are on, like we said, they're either on Pac-12 Network or if they're not on Pac-12 Network, they end up the Pac-12 streams them.
Yeah,
so.
More of them are getting picked up Pac-12 Network. I mean, both the games this weekend, Friday and Sunday, are both on Pac-12 Network. So, yeah.
Yeah. So, check it out. The women's basketball team. Don't miss it. It's fun. It's always fun to watch Cougs win. Try to watch the language you use when talking about the team.
Yeah. I would. I mean, look, our encouragement would be. I think I don't want to speak for both of us at the same time, but I think we both would give us advice. Speak about them the same way you would speak about men.
Yeah. None of this we're proud of you and just talk about them.
Yeah.
Like
talk about them being awesome.
Yeah. And if they're bad, talk about them being bad. It's fine.
Yes.
I
mean, we had this conversation, multiple times about not on the podcast, obviously, but kind of behind the scenes about June, where it was it seems like the standard was maybe a little lower.
Yeah.
Or, it was sort of don't embarrass us and you can stick around pretty much as long as you want. That's kind of what it seemed like with June under Bill Moose. So I think that kind of gets back to what I was saying earlier about just kind of where we're at right now. It seems like the standard of existing and not being embarrassing is no longer really in play as it was for a lot of sports. It wasn't just the women's sports. I mean, it was that way for a lot of the non-revenue sports, but I mean, I'll even say here's one that I don't think anybody pays attention to, but look, the swim team has gotten okay. And that's not that maybe that sounds terrible, but but honestly, they've been awful forever. They've really just basically existed. And that's about it. And if you really wanted to be super cynical, you could be they're there to balance our Title IX numbers. I mean, that's kind of what it was for a really long time. And I believe the coach's name is Matt Leach.
Yeah.
We had two Leaches, but so Matt Leach and they're even, on the come up. So yeah, it's, I feel like just sort of the standard has been raised to say, we have expectations of being competitive and we can do this and we'll build some facilities that, may not be rivaling, the highest programs around the Pac-12, but at the same time, they are, certainly good and not, actively subverting the coach's ability to do what they need to do. And, it's like I said, I think the standard has been raised and I think you're seeing that, play out across the board. And, I think, soccer and volleyball, I think had a lot to do with that sort of leading the way. No, we can do this. We can compete. We can expect
compete consistently.
Not just
every 4 years if you got a big class or whatever.
Yep. So it's, I think every program now aspires to being good every year. And, we have programs that now aspire to championships that never would have, thought of that. I guarantee you Jen Greeny is I want to win the Pac-12. And, that doesn't seem crazy. Right. And then you've got, soccer. I mean, that's definitely not crazy. Right. The idea of them, setting their sights on winning the conference. So, in football, it's been a long time since we've done that, but these are things that, can be done, be attainable.
In football, they were so close 3 years in a row.
Yep. So it's good times, man. Good times to be a Coug. And, speaking of soccer, right, Trinity Rodman is never going to play for us, apparently. But that's also a good thing, right?
Yeah, so Trinity Rodman's going to reported to going to put her name in the NWSL draft, which will be happening maybe as you're listening to this or, somewhere around it's January 13th. You may remember last year, WSU had 2 players drafted. Avery Collins, who was a grad transfer from Stanford, was drafted. And then, of course, Morgan Weaver was drafted second by the Thorns. So to have that sort of, and we talk about this with the men's basketball team, we talk about it with the football team, to have that sort of ability to show that you can bring in high school kids and turn them into professional athletes is important. And
it's huge.
And in women's soccer is obviously a massive sport in the U.S. We have the best women's soccer kind of program in the world. And even if you read more on it, there's even a lot of untapped potential because of the way that the kind of financial restrictions to playing soccer,
right.
high-level soccer in the U.S.
Right.
So there's even more untapped talent that could be even more dominant, even beyond winning 4 World Cups and out of the 8, I think, total women's World Cups that there have been. Or whatever. But yeah, so just Trinity Rodman was obviously one of the. I think she was number 1 recruit in the country last year, and so
she was the number 1 forward. I know that,
and obviously I think having DJ Rodman on was helpful in that. But still, she still saw WSU as a place she wanted to play, and now she's going to go pursue her professional career, which. That's pretty common in soccer in general, not as much in the U.S., but around the world. People go and play professionally when they're teens. Like they don't wait. Like we look at, we watch Borussia Dortmund and they have a 17-year-old American, or I think he might have turned 18, but they have a 16-year-old who is
German.
playing, 16-year-old who's already scored a goal in league play, and it's.
Another 17-year-old midfielder from
another
England.
17, so there's
these are people who have been in their academies for, not necessarily their academy, but have been in professional academies, for years. I mean, their best player is 19, right?
Yeah.
20, or did he just turn 20?
Holland
just
is
turned 20,
20.
right?
20.
Yeah, just turned 20. He's been in academies since he was, 13 or whatever.
Yeah.
And, I mean, anyway, so it's, like you said, not uncommon around the world. I think the U.S. men's game is definitely moving in that. I'm going to say moving. I'd say they've already gone in that direction to the point where the MLS draft is just completely irrelevant at this point, because the college players just don't even. The players playing American college soccer are just not. They're not. Most of them are not future pros or serious. Top flight pros. Those guys are playing in academies. They are, going overseas. They're guys like Gio Reyna and Weston McKennie and Serginho Dest and, guys like that, and Anthony Robinson. I mean, I'm naming off all these names, but these are all guys who, came up and went. It seems like the women's game is perhaps heading that direction.
Yeah. Unfortunately for the NWSL.
Yeah, so unfortunately for the NWSL, which means a lot of the top players are heading to Europe now, which are, with basically with clubs that are tied into the big men's European soccer clubs versus here where the franchises are independent. So it's going to be interesting with Rodman, because she could either do the draft thing and go to the NWSL, or she could, perhaps try to head off to Europe. So going to be very interesting.
And I'll give credit to the reporting of Stephen Goff of the Washington Post. He covers soccer for the Washington Post, and he's the one that's been on this. He reported that Rodman was considering it, and then reported yesterday that she was going to register for the NWSL draft. He also said she may go to Europe. There's European teams looking at her. So yeah, she's going pro, and good luck to her. She'll be fun to watch. I mean, she's a Coug, man. She signed up to come to Pullman. She lived in Pullman.
Yep.
Yeah, she's a Coug.
She's one of us.
She never. I don't care if she never plays for WSU. I mean, if you committed to making one of our best program even better, then you rock. And so.
She trained with them. I mean, she's one of us.
Yeah, go crush it. And
So
we have so much to talk about. What else we got? Might as well, since we're talking about these players additions and stuff. We mentioned the football team many times, so we actually have football news this week. And don't worry, we'll get to the men's basketball team. Obviously, Jeff and I.
If the problem is once we start talking basketball, we can't stop.
Yeah, so let's just do that. We'll save that for last.
So we'll get this out of the way.
As you know, last week we talked for over an hour before the break because we got hooked on the we get our Ked Palm nerdery and whatever. Kind of a surprise. WSU added a grad transfer quarterback. Jarrett, how do you say his last name? Guarantano?
I don't even know.
I'm going to say Guarantano. Jarrett Guarantano.
Sure. That sounds good.
Transfer from Tennessee. He played in all 4 years at Tennessee. Was a starter, then got benched. Some solid, not spectacular stats. Obviously, it's hard. We're always looking at it through the air raid lens, so it's hard to look at QB numbers. I would say his stats are like pretty comparable to Gardner Minshew's stats when he was coming over.
Yeah.
Even maybe a little better. He looks like he has a little bit of mobility. Not a runner, but definitely will pick up some yardage on the ground. I don't think any.
Well, he was rated as a dual threat quarterback when he was in high school.
Yeah.
So, in theory, there's the ability to run there. Obviously that was a long time ago for him, but he also was a 4-star recruit back at that time too. So
yeah, he's
big, maybe there's something in there.
6'4", 230, big dude. Got that that quarterback body. So he definitely I can't tell you, I think you said it in the comments, Jeff. I don't think he would have came if he thought he was coming to play as a backup or an insurance option or something. I think someone commented. So yeah, that's just not something that's gonna happen. So he's definitely gonna be competing for the starting job. They're not gonna bring in this guy that's played SEC ball to not do that. So and you got to remember. This doesn't mean what this means is probably Cam, Cooper, or Gunnar Cruz are both are thinking about transferring after it looks like Jaden is the preferred starter going forward, but still maybe they saw what Jaden had to offer and thought, hey, maybe we can give him a redshirt season because he can still do that. Or maybe maybe he's just not ready to we're not comfortable with him just doing it. We're going to make him compete against, an experienced QB. Because obviously still, at this point, before Jarrett Guarantano comes on, Jaden Delora is our most experienced quarterback.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know, man. I'm looking at his stats and I'm like, it's always so tough to tell. Like
you don't know what the offense they're running.
Yeah, Minshew's a great example, right? Like obviously, and look, I'm not gonna say this guy's gonna come in and be Gardner Minshew. Like that was 100% lightning in a bottle. Like that was some crazy shit. Like Gardner Minshew doesn't do anything and then shows up and lights the world on fire, and now he's an off and on starter in the NFL. Like that's that's some crazy stuff. So I'm not trying to project that onto here, but what I am going to say is that you never really know what a guy is capable of because the system matters and what you're asking the guy to do matters. I mean, look, we had a huge, okay, so we're both Seahawks fans, right? We've had endless debates about Russell Wilson, right? And how much of it is Russ and how much of it is Brian Schottenheimer, who no longer is the offensive coordinator, right? Or how much of it is Pete, meddling, and how much of this is whatever, and how do you parse out what's what? So when I look at this guy, right, and I go, okay, so in 2019, last season as a junior, he starts or plays in 13 games, attempts 257 passes. That's literally not 20. That's not even 20 attempts a game. Yeah. Right.
He was the full-time starter and did less than 20 attempts a game.
Less than 20 attempts a game, 59% completion, but 8.4 yards per attempt.
Pretty good.
Right.
Yeah.
16 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. Is he throwing interceptions because he throws interceptions? Is he, because obviously 16 to 8 is not a great ratio, right? So,
No.
but is he being asked to do certain things because he's only throwing the ball 20 times a game? Like
maybe he's throwing primarily in like 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9,
yeah,
3rd and 10.
right? Like, is that the situation, right? Like he's expected to pick up, 3rd and long, 2nd and long, like type throws, or did they have a vertical? I mean, I don't know because I don't watch mediocre SEC teams very much, so that's not. I just don't, right? Like if I'm going to watch a mediocre Pac-12 team or a mediocre SEC, I'm going to watch the Pac-12 team because I might actually play against that team, right? So I don't know. Like I'm intrigued. Like I'm intrigued because he's a former 4-star recruit. Not that that's everything, but that's some indication of perhaps a baseline talent level. And this year was quite bad for him. Like he was not good at all this year. So maybe the guy just needs, a little bit of a fresh start. And let's be real. I mean, Tennessee was 3-7 this year. So, they were bad.
Well, what we saw with Minshew is he was on some bad teams, and that obviously was part of it. And he got a fresh start here, and so I definitely gotta think that Nick Rolovich used Minshew as the sales pitch. Like, hey, this dude came here for 1 year, and he's in the NFL. So
entirely possible. So I'm intrigued. I think it's not necessarily. I don't think it's a bad thing at all to bring in another guy. I mean, obviously, I think we both think Delora is, the future, and obviously showed some moments of brilliance, but also, looked like a freshman. So, I think not throwing everything in with him is, a wise decision, especially if you're not sold on, either of the backups, Cooper or Cruz, being good enough to overtake him, right? Like if you're just like, I don't know, man, that's, so I don't blame the coach, especially if he knows something about somebody transferring. But I don't know, like if someone was going to transfer, you'd think we would have probably heard about it by now.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, we always
those guys get in the transfer portal, and everybody knows. Like it's not, it's never a secret.
There are reporters that pretty much monitor that.
Yeah, so you would think if they were going to do it, like now they would have done it before second semester started, and I think that started this week. So like you would think that would be the case. So I don't know, maybe they're sticking around for spring ball. Everybody sees what they got in spring ball, and then they decide, what they want to do for next year, which, may not be a bad strategy for everyone involved, and, go from there.
Yeah.
But we do know Max Borghi's coming back.
Yeah, that's
party.
That's great. That's I mean, obviously the fear was that he would go to the NFL, just be done with this, but potentially he just maybe didn't have enough tape this year, and maybe he just wanted to come back and see what he can do in the run and shoot. Yep. We've talked about. I'm really curious to what Rolovich will do with him. We're repeating, but still, now that we know, we fingers crossed stays healthy this year, and we have a full season, and we get to see Borghi, for 12, 13, up to 15 games in the run and shoot. We talked about with what Rolovich did with Travell Harris, and potentially because Borghi is obviously very good at catching the ball out of the backfield, but the run and shoot doesn't use the running back as a receiver. It uses the running back as pass pro. So it'd be interesting to see if they kind of change, create some packages specifically for Max to get him the ball in different ways. Because, I mean, he is that good, and you should try to do that. So hopefully, because we know, just on straight carries, he's not going to get a ton more carries than he did in the air raid, especially when you have another good running back on the roster. So I would think they're going to try to get Max in there, get him, touches in different ways, even though it hasn't historically been a run and shoot thing. But we saw this year that was not a straight up run and shoot, nor we would have expected it to be, given that they didn't have spring ball and everything. So yeah, it's pretty exciting. I'm excited to watch him again. We got just a taste of it against Utah. He had some real nice plays, but it'll be fun to be able to watch him for a full season.
Yeah, he, you mentioned he's real good at catching the ball. I think the idea with him is just he's so good in space, right?
Yeah.
Like he makes people miss.
And he runs that wheel route really well too.
Yeah, makes people miss like crazy, and so, and we know that Rolovich is not afraid to put in a play or two, at least that's not necessarily strict run and shoot philosophy, right? Like he'll put in some wrinkles to kind of maybe get an advantage at different times. So, I look forward to figuring out ways to get the ball to Borghi. He's probably, going to carry the ball maybe just like 15 times a game. That's probably about the ceiling for the most part of what he's going to be looking at. And then you're going to have McIntosh. Now, I haven't seen anything formal on McIntosh, but I'm assuming he'll be back.
Yeah.
So you're probably looking at 20 to 25 carries maybe being split between those two guys, if you're feeling pretty good, and then you figure that's, 40-ish passes, right? 40 to 45 passes. So that's probably about where you're going to end up, with those guys. So yeah, it's a heck of a deal. I mean, look, the only person so far who has said, they're not, the only senior who has said they're not coming back is Josh Watson. So the guard position, one of those guard positions, going to be sort of wide open for someone to step in and fill in. But everybody else has said they're coming back, except for we have not heard from Abe Lucas yet. My guess with Abe is that he's probably waiting on probably those NFL grades that they do, where they're like, we expected you'd be drafted in, X round, right? My guess is he's probably waiting on that, trying to get some information, kind of trying to figure out what his likelihood is of being drafted high. And, I don't blame him for that. So, good for him. And if he ends up, deciding that, he's probably going to be a top 3 round draft pick and he wants to go, then go ahead and go, man. 'Cause this is, next year's probably still going to be weird.
Yeah.
Like it's probably still not going to be normal. College is not going to be normal. All the stuff we enjoy about being in college is still not going to be normal. Like, I don't, if you've got a chance to go make money while not partying, maybe that's the better way to go. I wouldn't blame him.
Yeah. So, football news, again, so many things. I had to give a shout out to Lisa and her husband Darren, who wanted us to talk about women's basketball. We were planning on it already, but I appreciate the email, and we will certainly make it a weekly thing to talk about the women's hoops team, because they're having a special season, and they seem to have what it takes to keep that going. So, So, but of course, we are the men's hoops nerd team to the core, and we love our nerd ball. And after the break, let's get into that.
We're back.
We are back.
We are back.
I know you're not drinking anything.
I got water.
Yeah, you're dry.
It's not even just dry. It's just like I'm trying not to drink beer. Like that's my thing. You're
killing me, Jeff, because I got a special beer for us both to have
at
the same time.
My gosh.
And it's a very time-sensitive beer.
I might have to break that fast.
We talked about how time-sensitive it is.
That's right. I totally forgot about that.
Yeah, you
right.
know
We're
how
gonna have to work that out.
You know how I am. I looked for it immediately.
Yeah, we're gonna have to work that out.
So yeah, I'm drinking an interesting one. Ravenna Brewing, which is a brewery in Ravenna neighborhood of Seattle.
Go figure.
Which is kind of north east Seattle a little bit. But when you're getting east of I-5, probably in the 60s in terms of street numbers. That's about where Ravenna is. That's where Ravenna Brewing is, of course. And they have there's a little neighborhood downtown there and stuff. There's some nice restaurants and stuff. Highly recommend, check it out. But Ravenna, they've been kind of low key making some really good beers recently for a while. But I just there's so many breweries to try. But they've been in the pandemic, a lot of packaged beer that normally didn't make it south out of Seattle or even made it out of the brewery much is making it because they got to get rid of it somehow and they want to sell it. So Ravenna recently released a few barrel aged beers, and one of them is called I think it's Luna. They kind of have it like a crescent moon tilted. So it almost looks like Lona, but I think it's Luna because it looks like a moon. And it is a Mexican stout with vanilla chilies and cinnamon aged in tequila barrels.
Ooh. So
there's not a lot of stouts that are aged in tequila barrels. There are some very bad ones. The best one I've ever had is PNC by Firestone Walker. PNC stands for the Public and National Committee, so it was a collaboration between some of the kind of the OG beer stores and beer bars like Bottle Works, Browers in Seattle, Toronado in San Francisco, Falling Rock in Denver, and some others. So yeah, that was really the only tequila barrel aged stout I've ever had that I liked, but this one is quite good. I think it was funny, using the Mexican spices in there, make sort of a Mexican hot chocolate beer. And then aging in tequila barrels, the tequila is not overpowering, which is always the issue with tequila barrel stouts, because it's not it's not always flavors that meld together. I think probably the vanilla.
So I was gonna say they don't always play nice together.
Yeah,
like tequila is like a thing you want like a hint of. I think rather than to be,
and it probably if it's tequila barrels, it's probably some of the longer aged tequila, the añejo tequila, so that if you have some añejo tequila, the darker tequila, it really gets, because those are typically aged in like previously used bourbon barrels and stuff, so you get a lot of the kind of vanilla characteristics, and that's what I'm getting from this beer. There's obviously vanilla in the beer, but I think it really is melding with the tequila barrel, like the vanilla notes from the tequila barrel as well. And there's a little bit of that kind of like distinctive agave tequila notes, but it all like kind of melds really well together. It's a really easy drinking, very crushable at 11% stout. Like it's got a nice, say like a medium body, and I'm really enjoying it. Just a 500 milliliter, so not too big. So about 16.9 ounces. So I'm not getting too hammered here. I ate a good dinner and everything, so I'm good to go. But yeah, Ravenna Brewing, check them out. They do some of the coolest labels. They always use this like gold or silver on black, and like they just look like the bottle looks so pretty. The wax is way too thick on the top. That's starting to drive me crazy in my old age, I guess. I'm getting really grouchy about how thick the breweries make their wax, and I have to like get a knife out to cut it. I'm like, this is too much. This is unnecessary.
Yeah.
But yeah, I wanted to do a different brewery I haven't done before. So Ravenna, check them out. If you want to brave if you're coming from down where I am, it's like a wall to me, like downtown Seattle. Going anything north of there is like pretty rough, but yeah. All right. So basketball, Luna. It's round.
Yeah.
The moon.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Round ball. Let's talk about round ball.
Absolutely.
Man, I think the weekend went about how we expected.
Yeah. I don't know about you. I'm just happy we beat Cal, to be honest. Like that was the one they had to have.
I'm really happy they beat Cal the way they did too, given that Bradley was out. I probably wouldn't have felt very good if they narrowly beat Cal, given that their far and away best player was out. But they really shut them down defensively like they should have, given that Bradley was out. And they did pretty well offensively, even with some guys having really bad games. They had Bonton played his best game. Bonton had his best weekend of the season, which is really encouraging, given that he's played his best ball in Pac-12 play, and that's great.
By the way, his offensive rating in conference play, and so I'm reminding myself, because I hear this from listeners occasionally, I'm reminding myself to explain what these stats mean so that we don't leave people in the dust. But offensive rating is an efficiency measure. It's basically a measure of how many points you contribute per 100 possessions. Anything over 100 is good. And depending on how far over 100 you are, kind of depends on how many shots you take and how many possessions you use. And a possession used is anything that ends with you taking a shot, turning it over, whatever. Okay. So his offensive rating in conference play is 106. That's awesome for a guy who's using 28% of possessions. Like, he's 6th in the conference in possessions used, and yet he's been very efficient in the 4 conference games. 106 is that's stellar.
Been a great assist man. He's actually leading the conference in conference play in assist rate. So that's the percentage of your teammates' field goal makes that you assist on while you're on the floor. And so he's almost on the floor all the time. But so he is actually assisting on 41% of the baskets when he's on the floor. So that's pretty huge. And given then he's also shooting 30% of the shots, he's definitely in control, and he's actually playing really well. Like, this is as good as you can expect. Like, your 6'3" guard to like play. Like,
people need to let go of that shit from the beginning of the season when it was just chuck and duck and whatever. He is truly a different player right now.
He's shooting 39% on threes, 46% on twos. I think the free throws are going to come around. Like, they're
already back up to 70% after the last game.
So he was only 1 of 2 against Stanford, but he was 6 of 6 against Cal. So over the weekend he was 7 of 8. That's great. After having a tough 2 of 5 before that. It's really encouraging. His free throw rate is down, which I think is actually better. Because he's not at his best when he's just flying at the rim. Like, it's just that does not work for the team overall. But he's been playing more controlled, kind of playing like we saw against Stanford a little bit. He made a lot of good decisions where he'd sort of dribble to the top of the key, and if there wasn't something there, he'd back it out. He'd look for something else. He was shooting really well against Stanford. We'll talk about Cal. That game was good. I think he got a little frustrated, got a couple offensive fouls towards the end that bumped up his turnover number, which was a bummer. Otherwise, he still had a great game and overall 126.0 rating and great shooting percentages. Just the 5 turnovers, when 2 of them are kind of obvious frustration offensive fouls, that's a bummer. But yeah, so he had really good game against Cal. Obviously, it was interesting. Noah had a great second half against Cal. He struggled at first. We'll talk about him in a sec. And then Effa just has become a 3-point shooter. It's interesting that he obviously he's not been doing well finishing inside. But he's just stepped out and he hit 6 threes over the weekend, so that's kind of nuts. And
the shooting against Stanford was crazy, like, because he had that was probably his worst game of the year, I think,
for sure.
Where he just was just a complete non-factor inside. Like, if he hadn't hit those threes, it would have been like stunning how little impact. I mean, he made 0 twos. He did have a monster dunk putback that slipped off. I don't know if anybody's talked about this. I don't know if maybe he has slightly small hands. Like, I'm not even sure. Like, he's had some dunks where it seems like they should be pretty cut and dry.
Well, I don't know if he has, because he goes up with one hand quite often. Like, I don't know. Because that's one thing I said to you is, like, I think I even put on Twitter, like, he probably should go up with two hands more.
Maybe.
Instead of Instead of trying to get that highlight dunk, maybe just try to finish it up.
Maybe that's it. So, yeah, he just, didn't have a great game against, not coincidentally, right, the toughest 2-point defense, he's faced all year. That was not a coincidence.
No one was good. None of the bigs were good inside against
they found it extremely challenging to do much of anything. And I mean, I think this is maybe even the most telling thing. Like he only had 3 attempps. like he just couldn't get off shot. And at least one of them was just a straight putback too. So I'm talking about 2-pointers.
Yeah.
At least one of them was just a putback. He shot 6 threes and only had 3 twos. That's definitely not what you want from him. And he only had 3 rebounds. First game, I think his previous low was, it looks like against Eastern. Maybe he had 4 rebounds in 10 minutes. This was 3 rebounds in 28 minutes.
Yeah.
It was quite bad. He's young, right? He's still learning. He's still figuring out how to be effective. And, Stanford's real tough. But he had a good game against Cal, had 12 points, 9 rebounds.
Well, again, that was a lot of 3-point driven because he had
3 of 4 from 3. Yeah, so his last 2 games, 1 of 7 from 2. Game before that, 2 of 5. So in Pac-12 play, and maybe this is something to keep an eye on, he's 3 of 12 on 2s.
Yeah.
Not good. Not good at all. You would expect something more like 7 of 12 on 2s.
I'll say that,
something to keep an eye on.
Stanford and Arizona be 2 of the toughest front lines that he'll face in terms of interior defense. So hopefully against some other teams he can get right. But UCLA could be one of those teams, and we'll get to previewing the other games too. But wrapping up, the weekend, big win. Stanford was a bummer. Obviously, Noah got hurt in the first half. We have to talk about this.
Boo.
On some bullshit.
I was so mad.
So we're all still mad at Deshaun Jackson got called for on a review on an elbow on just a regular basketball move for a flagrant foul against Arizona. This one was also reviewed for a flagrant foul, but not determined to be, even though it was very clear Spencer Jones had no intention of challenging Noah at the rim on a fast break, no intention of doing anything, but standing kind of 3/4 with his back to him and very clearly backing up under him. Like very clearly backing up under him. And that's one of the most dangerous things you can do, especially to a basketball player who's running down the floor and on a fast break opportunity. And obviously Noah got hurt. He landed, it looked like on his tailbone. Don't know how.
He was screaming the moment he hit the ground.
Yeah. And he looked like he was in very, very intense pain. And hopefully nothing broke or anything.
Yeah.
And maybe it's just a
He
bruise,
did try to warm up after halftime, which indicates that maybe they felt okay that he wasn't, a total disaster. But
who knows if he'll play going forward. But I think they very much missed him, particularly just from a body's perspective in the second quarter, second half. Because you already have Rapp out at the guard position.
Yeah,
Warren is proving to struggle against Pac-12 teams.
Yes,
he
very much looks like there's a reason why he was a walk-on.
So they're running Bamba 22 minutes in that game, which is more than you wanted to. And he had his struggle. He was one guy trying to get shots inside, and it was not working out for him.
Yeah, you can kind of see where the things he still has to get better at. You can see those things pretty clearly.
He's got to be more of a threat from the outside. It's still impressive how he does get to the rim, but he's just not great at. We see this with freshmen a lot. They got to learn how to use their bodies at the rim against like grown men. So he'll get there. He's definitely got tools, but if he's like your fourth best guy from the class, like that's pretty good,
Right.
And he might even be the fifth best guy or even sixth, given we don't know what Carlos Rosario has. But again, Carlos Rosario had to play.
Yeah.
He still looks, very raw. He tried to
extremely skinny.
He tried to do a little dribble drive off of a screen and just got the ball taken away from him.
Whoopsies.
Yeah, whoops. And he didn't try to do that again after that. I think he might have come out after that. So yeah, he's still got a ways, but you can see kind of he's a basketball, but you can see his movement. Like you can see he's got some athleticism. He's just very skinny. He needs to add some weight. He wasn't. I don't think he wasn't supposed to play in that game. Obviously, they obviously thought Vova was a bad matchup. So Tony Miller got quite a few minutes. Thankfully, played well. Made 5 of 6 free throws. Way to go, Tony. It made the 2 free throws as a big fuck you to Stanford after they picked him to shoot the free throws after Noah was hurt, because the opposing team gets to pick the shooter when the player fouled can't take the free throws. So Tony made both of those, which is always a big deal.
That was pretty great.
But obviously Tony, matching up against Oscar da Silva was rough. That was tough guard for him.
Pretty much a very tough matchup.
But it was to be honest, it was tough for anyone they put on it, especially in the last 10 minutes of the game. They made a hell of a run after halftime to take the lead, and it was really fed by threes and playing some defense. They got a lot of stops in that first 14 minutes or so. They were able to whittle the lead down and finally take the lead because Effa was hitting threes, and Yakumovsky, I talk about him. He had a terrible game against Cal, but came back and hit 5 threes, a career high, 19 points against Stanford. So that was encouraging, because if he can hit his shots, that's huge for this offense. Still, they hit 11 of 24 threes, still only 0.88 points per possession. Because they really didn't get to the free throw line much. Outside of Tony, who is just a free throw line getting to machine. Like he draws fouls. Like he draws fouls really well. I don't know how he does it, but he's just very good at that. Because he's just, I think like FA could learn something about the way Tony attacks the basket when he has the ball.
Yeah.
And the way he kind of uses his body and uses his leverage.
Well, Miller even had an and one that got called on the floor that was a total bullshit call.
That great drive.
He blew past a guy, took 2 huge steps and exploded to the rim, and the ref was like, "That's on the ground." Because
when was it on the ground?
I don't believe that you could actually take off from there and get to the rim. I'm sorry.
Also, when was the foul? I mean, it was a really you could just not call the foul. Refs do it all the time. Hold the whistle, see if shot goes in.
It was bizarre. Whatever.
But yeah,
whatever.
that would have been huge because. Not having Noah and then also not having Rapp down the stretch, those guys are gassed. Bonton's playing a lot of minutes, and Bonton he didn't look tired, but they keyed in on Bonton because they key in on Bonton, try to block the Stanford's a very good defensive team. They realized Yakumovsky finally figured out guard him. You needed that other scoring guard, and they didn't have it. If they had Noah in there, I think it would have made a huge difference. Well, maybe they don't.
There were opportunities for that, right?
Yeah.
There were opportunities to penetrate. We talked about Bamba, right? So Bamba in his 22 minutes had 5 2-point attempts, right? There were opportunities there to get into the lane, get to the rim. He just couldn't finish at all.
And in fairness, Noah was 1 of 4, and his only bucket was a breakaway bucket, but we saw Noah has the ability to kind of work himself into a game, and like he did against Cal. He has a step back jumper and he has a 3-point shot now. These are things that Bamba doesn't have. That Noah definitely could have. He could have got in on that 3 parade a little bit. They may not have won, but they would not have had that that stretch, the last 5 minutes.
They would
or
not
last
have gotten
6
outscored
minutes.
22-5 over the last 7 minutes or whatever.
Yakumovsky hit a 3 to get him to 58-58, I think, with like 6 minutes left, and they scored 2 points after that.
Yeah.
So and
De Silva just went.
And De Silva took over. I think he scored 13 points in a row at some point. Like he was the all league player that he.
Yeah, I mean he's going to be the Pac-12 Player of the Year more than likely.
Yeah, he's playing on, and I will say, WSU made him work harder for his points than most teams have.
Yep, until the end.
Up until the end, his O rating was only 114. He's been running like 124, 130. Like he's just been. I mean, he was 9 of 18 from the floor. He's been shooting much higher than that. He shot a lot more. He was shooting threes early in the game because that's what he could only get. So he had a huge game, but he's going to have a huge game against everybody, and that was what we were worried about coming in.
Yeah,
kind of the rest. Zaire Williams, gave him a tough time. He's a future potential lottery pick.
He's going to be.
Yeah,
he's going to be.
He's got that NBA, length. Looks, reminds me a lot of the federal way kid from last year.
Yep, Jalen McDaniels.
Jaden McDaniels. So he reminds me a lot of him. But I think I said in my preview, he shoots at a pretty high. He has a pretty high usage rate. If he gets hot, he'll be in trouble. And he got hot in the first half, and he was tough to guard. But yeah, it sucked to end like that, to end up losing by 15 because they just work so hard.
It absolutely
and that's part of it.
They did not get outplayed by 15 points in that game.
No.
And so it's always a bummer when that's where
and plus when you're out, you're down, and we're not even talking about, they're still down DJ Rodman. He would have gotten minutes in that game.
Yep.
So you're talking about the guys that are getting minutes instead, Rosario and Warren, when Rapp and Rodman are out. That's, and Bamba getting probably, 10 to 15 more minutes than he would have gotten. So that's Rosario and Bamba could be great players eventually. They're freshmen right now who are not kind of there yet. And so, and obviously they must have thought, again, Kuntz, who had a pretty solid game against Cal, was again kind of relegated to the bench in this one. He's becoming a player that is very much a spot. Like if he gets in and he hits a shot or something, I think they leave him in. But if he's not hitting a shot, he gives up. I think he's maybe has a very short leash on defense. Kyle Smith said after Arizona he was just giving up too many points on defense. So if he's got a short leash, but he's definitely still he can be a factor like he was against Cal. But that'd be interesting. But yeah, I hope we're getting some guys back this weekend, man. Obviously, they said Rodman was, I think, probably healed up enough to play, it seems, but he was still in COVID protocol, and Rapp as well, and then Brandon Chatfield as well.
Yep.
But I don't think Chatfield will be playing much anyway. But
I mean, at this point, you figure you've got your three bigs.
Yeah, he probably would have played against Arizona. I really, I think having Rapp back will be huge. Warren is there's just like Warren was good against the non-conference schedule, but he's having a harder time against Pac-12 guards, and Rapp just is bigger, a little more athletic. I think maybe not more athletic, but he's bigger and can shoot it a little better, stretch it out a little farther, probably equal ball handling, probably better defense. There, we talked about Rapp being that plus minus star, and we're kind of seeing why. And I really, not saying we'd have won. There's a decent chance they actually would have beaten Arizona if they had Rapp, even just having Rapp, and not even having Vova for that one. And I think Stanford game looks better. They probably beat Cal a little easier even. And plus, like, Bonton's going to wear it down, man. Like, he needs a few less minutes on the floor, I think.
Yes.
Like, he's playing 95% of the minutes or so.
I don't know. Like, I kind of go back and forth on that sort of thing. Because it's not the NBA. They're not playing, 3-4 games a week.
That's true.
They're playing 2, and we've seen guys do it. And I don't know, man. I look at him and I just think, I don't know. Like, sometimes you can just sort of look at a guy, I think, and get a sense of just, how much they got in him. He does not seem like a guy who really wears down. And maybe that'll change as the season goes on.
I mean, he did get hurt last year, so maybe that might be how he wears down. He just gets a little more susceptible.
And maybe that's possible. But his energy over the course, like I don't know, like typically I look at, a guy, does his energy dip over a game? And then, okay, so as the season goes on, his energy is going to dip as the season goes on. I mean, I don't even see that in a game. Like, when he's playing, like, I don't see a dip in his energy or his effort.
He often has his best ball in the second half, too. So.
Yeah, like, so I don't know. I'm curious. I am curious to see if it's, what kind of, how sustainable that is. Just not going to be a lot of opportunities for him to catch a breath. You did see Kyle Smith try and get creative with that a little bit, pull him out a minute before a media timeout to try and get him a little extra rest. I mean, coaches will do those little tricks to try and steal some minutes. It's a tough deal, and it's probably, it's probably not going to change this weekend. I mean, he's going to play, they're going to play UCLA, and Tiger Campbell, the point guard for UCLA, is going to, is going to run him ragged, right? And so it's it doesn't get any easier. It doesn't get any easier for sure. I was surprised against Stanford that you mentioned Vova a little bit earlier. I was surprised that he didn't play a little bit more down the stretch. And I know he's not necessarily a good matchup for like De Silva's athleticism, right? But the way De Silva was sort of carving him up there at the end, I was a little surprised that maybe they didn't try to go, go Vova, go zone, try to clog it up, try to just do something different, and make De Silva try to have to go up through a very large, very tall man, to get to the rim. But it's hindsight's 2020. I do think Vova's going to get more run against UCLA. I don't know about USC, but UCLA, Cody Riley's a load and a half. So, we may see. I suspect we'll see. And Jalen Hill is also not a small man. I suspect that we will see a bit more of Vova on the game against UCLA than we did against Stanford.
So let's look ahead. Tough weekend.
Very tough.
Maybe the toughest weekend on the schedule. Yeah, I would say probably the toughest weekend on the schedule.
I don't think there's any doubt about that.
Yeah, you go to Poly, that you just haven't won very much there, but that notwithstanding, UCLA I think is the one, if they're going to get one, is the one that would be more likely to get. That's kind of your best shot at a win. They are without Chris Smith, who's one of their best players, another kind of future NBA guy, potential NBA guy, their senior leader, and he tore his ACL, so he's out for the season. Super bummer for him. But would have been a
bummer for us too. Would have liked to have watched him. Yeah,
he is a fun player to watch, but would have been a very tough player for the Cougs to match up with, because he really kind of plays as a 4, plays very much stretch, and it would have been interesting to see who they would have put on him. Probably FA, but it would have been a different sort of cover for FA. He's obviously played some stretch 4s, but Chris Smith is a very different animal. But he's not going to be playing. You mentioned Cody Riley. He's there. They have 2 bigs that they rotate at the 5. Riley, who's only played 51% of minutes despite starting every single game. So he's only going to play, 25 minutes. I think he'll play a little more because Chris Smith is not in. But and then they rotate in Jalen Hill at 6'10", 245. Outside of that, every player is 6'6" and under on this team that you would expect to play. They have some other players. They have another big, but he has not played very much. He could play, but it's hard to just get into the weeds on every single player.
Yeah.
But I think key guys to look at, a guy that hurt us quite a bit last year was Tiger Campbell. Just a very quick guard, very tough guy. One of the best, penetrating guards in the conference. Very much loves to get in the lane and create. I think because of his size is why he doesn't get to the free throw line as much. He's not looking to score as much, but he is looking to distribute. They do have some 3-point shooters, Jaime Yaquez, and actually I don't know if he pronounced it Jaime, right? I think
Jaquez, yeah.
Jaquez, and he, if I remember right, did he light us up last year? I think he had one of the games, the 3-point battle with Jeff Pollard last year in Polypavilion.
Yeah.
But yeah, Jules Bernard is another guy that can knock down shots, but he both of them very tough guards, and they're kind of their like third and fourth options, and they're very good. And so
they're a lot like Kyle Smith's 6-tool players. Like that's what they've got. And so what they've got is they've got Tiger Campbell at the point, and then they've got a couple of bigs, and then the other 3 guys are all like similar sized, similar skilled, interchangeable, in and out guys. They can all run, they can all finish. They come at you with a whole ton of guys. It's one of the reasons why Tiger Campbell is so good, because they just got so many guys who can finish, who can shoot a little. They got dudes all over the place. The last game I watched with them, it showed all their point averages. I know we don't look at the point averages that much, but they got like 5 guys averaging double figures. It's like between 10 and 11 points.
And they're not a high possession team. They're
but they are a high efficiency team.
They're a high efficiency team. They're 340th in adjusted tempo. So that tells you, one,
yep,
they make shots too. They're very starter heavy in who's like taking the shots, and so they're middle of the road in bench minutes. They use far fewer bench minutes than like WSU uses. Another guy, Kyman was big last year, but he's very off and on. He could very well come in and hit 5 threes. He's one of those guys. And the Johnny Juzang guy, he's another guy that you can lump in with Jaquez and Bernard as that legion of wings that they play.
Yep.
Everyone's a wing. So this is why, I don't know if Noah can play this weekend. I'm going to kind of assume he's not, but this would be a squad that you really wish you could have Noah, because he could check one of those guys at least, and at least give you some help there. But because it'll be interesting. I could see them maybe zoning because of Campbell's penetrating ability, and just because it's going to be a tough guard for like Yakumovsky to check one of these guys. Effa to check one of these guys. I'm gonna figure out how to say his first name eventually. But so it'll be interesting to see what they use. But I definitely think with Smith out, that takes them down a peg. That's an important player for them. And this isn't a team this is a team that WSU can. Actually, their bigs can have a comeback game and do a lot and score inside. They're 199th in 2-point percentage allowed. In conference play, they're giving up 52% on 2-pointers. So that's not the strength of their defense. They don't. It's interesting that they must just let you score and not foul. They're
number 1 in free throw rate defense in conference play.
But they do allow a lot of 3-pointers. So that was against Stanford. Really, the only way WSU was going to keep up offensively was hitting threes. So hopefully they have that in them again, because there's probably going to be opportunities. So hopefully Yaki brings his shooting shoes, and Bonton is still hot, and again, you wish that Noah was playing, because he's been able to hit them in spots, and But again, if they have Rapp back, that helps a lot.
Yep.
He could very well start if he's back, honestly. It's
Yeah.
going to be interesting.
Yeah, Smith mentioned that Bamba. I didn't see the videos in his press conference, so I don't know if he said Bamba would probably start if Noah was out, or Bamba could start if Noah was out. But I know Bamba's name came up, which doesn't shock me there.
Oh, yeah.
The athleticism, the defense, those things are all great. And then, in theory, against UCLA, maybe a little better chance to finish on the inside than he did before. I do agree with you that UCLA is probably the better chance. I always tend to favor, with our team, if I'm looking at matchups that I feel like they're more likely to be successful, I always feel like they have a better chance of success against an offense forward opponent, if that makes sense.
Yep, absolutely.
I trust our defense more than I trust our offense right now. UCLA's offense is really, really, really good. Like they just, put up 1.25 points per possession against Arizona, right? And we just said 1.0 is average. So to do that against Arizona is really damn impressive. They've only been under 1.0 points per possession in one game, and it was the first game against San Diego State. So they've pretty much scored against everyone they've played against. Some of those teams really good. They've scored against Ohio State. Colorado, Arizona held them right around 1.01, 1.02, which is okay, good, right? Like that. Okay. Like, if we can hold them right around there, awesome. Except like, I don't know, man. Are we gonna score more than 1.0? Man, that's gonna be tough. I mean, Colorado and Arizona State. UCLA won both those games.
Yeah.
Even though they got held down below what they normally do, they also held Colorado and Arizona State well below what they normally do. Also, so
gotta take care of the
I don't
ball
know.
and gotta hit your shots. Like I mean, I know that's just like cliche, but I mean, they need to hit some threes. Because there's going to be I think you got to be a 40+% three maybe again, or maybe 35% three. Like a 9 of 25 area, just to give you a shot in there. And then if you can find your way inside, you can finish. And maybe like you said, maybe Bamba, maybe this can be a breakout game for him. Well, he's already had a breakout game, but this would be his breakout Pac-12 game maybe. Or maybe that's what we're hoping for, right? Like we're hoping FA can get back on track inside. And maybe Deshaun Jackson is the guy. Because, if they're only playing one big at once, they can't cover FA and Deshaun or FA and Vova. So they can find, they're going to have a size advantage on offense. And we know they're not afraid to use the post. So maybe WSU can steal some points in the post with Vova and Deshaun Jackson, and FA can crash the glass. Because UCLA is a solid defensive rebounding team, but you take Chris Smith out, and they're actually not as good. Like it's basically Riley and Hill, but they rotate. They're generally not in the game at the same time. So I think this is a game. Hopefully they can get some offensive rebounds. That's how you win. Get just exploit what UCLA does defensively, and then just hope against hope that you can slow them down offensively. Hopefully the defense is legit, and maybe just Oscar Da Silva was just such a superior player that's really what went wrong against Stanford and nothing else, because really everything else was fine. Even Zaire Williams cooled down after a while. So, and I do think, guard wise, if Bamba and Bonton or Bamba and Rapp, I think they can guard up top pretty well. It's just that those mismatches at the 3 and the 4 are going to be interesting on defense. So hopefully they can hold them down and hope, because like we said, they're going to need to win. If they're actually have postseason aspirations, they're going to need to win a weird game at some point. Like they're going to have to get a game that they're not supposed to.
Yep.
And like we said this weekend, UCLA. So if we look over at USC, they're stacked. They're like,
yes.
Evan Mobley, good luck.
I know. Everybody was like, any of you out there who watched them last year and were like, oh, good, we're rid of a Kongwu. Oh, well, that's great. Well, now you got the freaking Mobley brothers, like, destroying people on the inside.
Yeah.
Offensively and defensively.
Yeah, so they're running Evan Mobley is basically like a 7-foot wing almost.
Basically, like when you look at him, it's the same deal. Like all arms, all legs, and he's fluid and just
Kevin Durant.
He's awesome.
Maybe it didn't shoot outside as much, but kind of that fluidity at that size. Mobley's more of a classic big, but they're just, they're going to be a tough guard. Again, what's even going to be more hard is the other end of the floor. Scoring is going to be hard against USC.
So USC, where I said UCLA is offense forward, USC is defense forward. They block 16.6% of teams' 2-point attempts. Number 4 in the country. That's nuts. Really good. It's crazy.
It's tough, because we talk about, Evan Mobley's 7 foot, or Evan Mobley, what are their names? Like the 6'10"
Evan
guy.
And Isaiah.
Isaiah is 6'10", 235. Evan is 7 foot, 215. Obviously slender, but just long as hell and athletic as hell. It's just they're so good.
He's ridiculous.
Coming on, your second game of a road trip, it's going to be a tough one. You look at if you want, I remember last week one of our readers mentioned he just loves it, gets so hyped. It's like, well, okay, what are we looking at if we're trying to hype you up for this USC game, man?
Yeah, this is a team. So when we look at UCLA, we said, look, we got our 2 bigs. Maybe we got a little bit of an advantage there, right? Playing 2 bigs and against UCLA's kind of smallish front line outside of their center, right? They're going to have a smallish 4. USC, man, this is maybe the one exception in the conference to, we can match up with anybody athletically in the front court. This might be the exception. This is a game where, I want to be like, we might not see Vova at all, but I also think
just for fouls, you may need to.
Just for fouls and minutes, because you can't go, you can't play a big and Tony Miller. That ain't gonna work. So it's gonna. I don't know, man. The USC might be the one team in the conference that might cause Kyle Smith to lose a little sleep, because they are just they are going to be a matchup nightmare.
Well,
a matchup nightmare for us.
You have Taj Eddy. The point guard, 6'2", very regular size. But then you have Drew Peterson, 6'8". He'll do point and he'll run the shooting guard. And you have Isaiah White, 6'7" at the 3. Isaiah Mobley, 6'10" at the 4. Evan Mobley, 7 foot at the 5. Which he's, is he really doing the 5? I don't know. He's just kind of all over the place. He's definitely the 5 on defense though, because he's blocking just shots like crazy. But then they bring in Goodwin, 6'9". He's not huge, but these guys are playing a ton of minutes, so they're not coming out. But they're still big. Even the backups are big. They got 6'9" guys, 6'6" guys. They're just a big team. Again, tough not having Noah. It's going to be more of a challenge. I mean that goes without saying. Noah's one of the top 2 players on the team or something, depending on the day. Sometimes the best player on the team, just depends on the day. But it's going to be a challenge, and hopefully we're just totally wrong. And
I would not be shocked if they blew us out, but I guess you never know. I don't know. They just went to overtime with UC Riverside.
Exactly.
They beat Arizona State by 9. They beat Arizona by 14. Okay. They killed Utah. Okay. But lost to Colorado by 10 at home. And Colorado's really good, but I don't know. I'm part of it is I'm not that impressed with Andy Enfield as a coach.
Yeah.
I think UCLA
City,
of the 2
baby.
teams, UCLA is definitely the better coach team.
Still got my Florida Gulf Coast shirt.
You'll always have Dunk City.
Yeah, I love to always have Dunk City, but I'm just saying Dunk City. Obviously, Andy Enfield is recruiting pretty well.
Yes, that part, obviously. Coaching.
But even you look at this roster and you're like, why are they only number 21? Why are they a top 10 team? This is an insane roster.
Yeah.
But so maybe, yeah, like I think like the good thing about with Smith, you feel like you have the better coach in most matchups.
Yeah.
Maybe not with Matt Cronin.
That might be a wash.
Yeah, but I think like tactically, analytically, I think he's got the advantage on infield, and
I feel confident saying that.
But yeah, again, the talent, man. Like just
yep.
If we didn't just have the recruiting class with Deshaun and FA, good God, this would be a bloodbath. Yeah. But like, thankfully, we have. Bigs.
Well, we saw what happened last year.
Yes, those Kongwu.
Vova tried.
Yeah.
He tried real hard.
Yeah, it didn't work out.
Poor guy. that was overmatched. He was overmatched. But
hey, like you said, they can play down. They not necessarily have blown out teams that you would expect them to blow out, but they have blown out some teams that are pretty good. So, like winning by 14 on the road against Arizona is pretty impressive. So
it is, no doubt.
Yeah, I don't know. Just make 30 3-pointers, and then maybe I'll win.
Yeah, I don't know. Try not to get in foul trouble. I mean, Evan
get
Mobley
them
blocks,
in foul trouble. Yeah, that would help.
Evan Mobley blocks a million shots and also never fouls anybody. So good luck with that, I guess.
Yeah, that's nuts, man.
He is. I will say this: like, this is a game. If fans are like, I can only watch one game or whatever. Look, you want to watch Evan Mobley, like you just do. Yeah. Like, he's awesome. He's an incredible talent. I do not know.
This will be his only year, and
this will be his only year. I don't follow NBA draft mocks or anything like that, but I have a very hard time believing that he's not considered a top 5 pick. He's fantastic, and he's a unique talent, unique body shape, just a really interesting kid to watch play. So it'll be fun. It should be fun watching him and FA go up against each other a little bit, and kind of maybe see what each guy's got, and maybe FA will take the challenge personally and try to show something against another guy who's got obviously NBA aspirations. So, but I also wouldn't be shocked if we lost by 20.
Yeah, FA is also still giving up a couple inches, and probably even on the wingspan. So Evan Mobley was SI had him as the second best prospect for next year's draft in December.
That doesn't shock me. He's really good. Ken Palm's got him as the number 2 player in the conference for the Ken Palm Pac-12 Player of the Year, which sort of measures all the efficiency stats or whatever.
And then plus you have to be it weighs in how good your team is.
Right,
too.
Weighs in how good your team is. So he's the only non-senior in the top 5, and he's number 2 right now behind De Silva. So yeah, real good, real good. He'll be fun to watch.
Yeah. Well, but I will say he's not like a super high usage player. Like, they're not going to be giving it to him over and over and over.
No,
again.
They spread it out a bunch, kind of like UCLA does.
Yeah, I mean, you got them. You got those players.
Yeah.
Okay, might as well.
Work for Kentucky.
Yeah, not right now. It's not working very well for.
Not
Kentucky,
right now, but
but it has in the past.
Over the years, it has.
Oh, and another point. So WSU is tall this year. I think they're in the top 20 in average height, 13th. USC's number 1. So
their average height is 3 inches taller than the average for Division I.
Yeah. So which is 79. So it's 12. I'm 77 and I'm 6'5". So their average height is almost 6'8". Like their average player is
average
6'8".
player.
So yeah.
And that's only because they got and I think that's weighted by minutes. I'm pretty sure how that works. So their shortest guy is Taj Edie, right? You mentioned that, and then it's 6'6" and above for the rest of them, for anybody who plays any meaningful minutes. So yeah, going to be a special challenge.
Yes,
it's gonna be fun.
But I will say, this is probably these 3 games in a row are tough.
Yep.
But Utah after that at home is when you're gonna hope to win. And
yeah, that's a winnable game.
Yeah, and so, but yeah, hey, still, I think UCLA it's not like it's Ken Pom is 15%, but Ken Pom's algorithm doesn't know who's playing, doesn't know like what players are out. It just goes by overall, adjusted efficiency. So I think like in terms of matchups, UCLA isn't that bad. There's opportunity there.
Yep, I agree.
And so, but also, you want to watch that one? It's at 2 p.m. on Thursday.
Yeah.
2 p.m.
How about that?
Yeah, on FS1. So
gonna get some East Coast exposure, I guess.
Yeah, for those of you who maybe don't have Pac-12 Network, you can watch this once on FS1 at 2 p.m. So maybe check out of work early. Maybe you're working.
Set the DVR.
Maybe, set the DVR. Maybe you're working from home. Pull it up on your external monitor.
Yeah, make sure you got 2 monitors.
Yeah,
or 3.
Like
I got.
Yeah, but yeah. So I don't know. I'm excited to watch them play again.
Yeah, and if they get one, I mean, we're over the moon if they get one of them.
Yeah, if they come 3-3 in conference,
either one of them, we feel great.
Oh yeah, either one, because they're
one.
Yeah.
Both of these teams are going to be in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah.
So if you win one of them, that means you come out of the weekend 3-3. You're coming back home for Utah, Colorado. Yeah, you're feeling great at that point for sure.
Yeah, and UCLA,
but it'll probably be 0-2.
UCLA hasn't blown out anyone but Cal, so they're 5-0. But their other wins have been close. So that the opportunity's there, and hey, that would be real fun. Wins in Poly Pavilion are hard to come by. That's why every time like games like last year when you're so close and you end up losing.
Yep.
I don't see Cody Riley just going nuts on them for a stretch. We got the guys to check him this year, and so hopefully I love watching the Cougs win. So yeah, both basketball teams down in LA facing some tough squads. It's funny that the women's team you'd be more likely to beat USC. UCLA is real tough on the women's side. But yeah, check them out. Anything else, Jeff?
No, I think that about covers it, man.
Yeah. So again, I've been begging for emails. I've gotten a couple emails.
We got some.
One thing I wanted to answer. I answered an email, but Max asked about what COVID protocol means. So I answered a bit in the email. So COVID protocol, obviously this has come up with the men's basketball team. So COVID protocol can mean 2 things with the players. Either they could have been exposed or, potentially exposed to someone who tested positive for COVID, or they themselves could have COVID. WSU is not going to tell you if the player has COVID or not, but they will tell you. They will say when players are out for COVID protocol or whatever. Like we had, Arizona had Vova and DJ Rodman, Brandt and Ryan Rapp, and then we still had Ryan Rapp and DJ Rodman and Brandt out for this weekend. So I don't know if they'll be back. I will say if you're trying to figure out if someone actually has COVID or is just exposed, you just look at how long they're out. That probably tells you a lot about that. So and as far as Max also asked about the rules, the Pac-12 has a set of rules, but teams are beholden to different local rules. So that's why you see like Stanford is playing in Santa Cruz because their county is, I think, San Joaquin or whatever, or maybe just their city is not allowing them to play there, so they have different set of COVID rules. Obviously, they're we've seen like the San Francisco 49ers play. They played their home games to end the year in Arizona. So obviously the local rules apply differently as well. So it's not super consistent as to what teams have to go by, but there are some Pac-12 testing guidelines that they have to abide by.
Yep.
Which is why, against the Cal football team, they do testing right before the games. So, and then you have to then follow the exposure protocols. So if it just took one player on Cal, and then enough players were exposed within his position group, so they could not play. There aren't like those position group limitations for basketball, obviously, but there's just so few players. One guy can be potentially exposed to 3 other players, and suddenly you're down 4. So,
yep.
So yeah, that's kind of how I hope that helps Max and whoever else may be thinking about what the heck COVID protocol is.
Yep.
Yeah. I don't know if you have anything.
It'd be nice if they'd tell us, but whatever, right? I mean, we're kind of used to this at this point, and I don't know if they tell us those sorts of things, then people start tracking things like how many positive COVID tests there are in college basketball, and then people start putting together databases, and then the NCAA looks bad. So they don't tell us those things.
So they just say, they're out for precaution, and
yeah. But, as you said earlier, you can sort of make some inferences. And, Vova was out with the COVID protocol, and then he wasn't, right? But then Rapp and Rodman and Chatfield were also – they were still out. So I think at that point maybe safe to assume that, there may have been some positive tests in there with those guys. So I'm just hoping everybody's healthy, and if they are and they're ready to come back, then certainly they especially Rapp can be used for sure if Noah's going to be out. So,
but yeah, thanks Max for that question. Thanks Lisa for your email as well. If you want to email us questions, podcastvseveryone@gmail.com. So I've now I've gotten a few the last few weeks, so I've been better about checking them. So I'll look at them. I'll probably shoot you an email back, and then we'll probably answer it on air as well.
Yep.
If you call this on air. So if you want to follow Jeff on Twitter, it's at podvseveryone. I am at the Craig Powers. You should subscribe if you're not subscribed. You should rate us 5 stars if you haven't done that, and leave us a nice comment. Yeah, we'd love it.
Yeah, that's it.
All
Anything
right.
else?
I just gotta say, go Cougs.
All right, go Cougs, Craig. Black Lives Matter.
Black Lives Matter.